Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming this evening. You are at the Sandy City Transportation Master Plan Update Open House this evening. We've been working on this project for several months now. My name is Brittany Ward. I am the City Transportation Engineer and also the project manager over this project. So basically a little bit of background information. Our current transportation master plan is about 10 years old now. Many of the projects within that plan have already been finished, either through capital projects or through city funding and federal funding or through development. So the last plan was done about 2009, so it's time for an update. The timing for this year's plan actually worked out really well. So we formed a Sandy City Bike Committee a couple years ago, and we went through and made a Trails Master Plan update with the council about 1.5 years ago. And then from there, we actually got funding to do an active transportation plan, and that looks at all the different transportation components that are related to active movement. So basically anything except for a vehicle. And we are just finishing up that process right now. And then we took that active transportation plan and purposefully overlapped it with this transportation master plan, or TMP for short, so that we could have a smooth integration of the active transportation plan into the transportation master plan, and so that those projects would overlap. So obviously a large part of this new TMP update is active transportation. But stepping back to the TMP, it does take a look at all transportation types throughout the whole city, including traffic, reviews the existing conditions, and makes recommendations for the future. The other nice thing about the timeline for this project is we just barely synchronized all of our signals last year, including the UDOT signals within the Sandy City border. So that was about 80 signals that got retimed. And that really laid a very good foundation for the traffic modeling for this TMP update. Let's see. So everything really lined up really well and fell right into place. So with this update, I'm positive that it's going to be quite successful. We already have a long list of projects that are suggested up on our website. We have projects that we're already planning to do. So it's been a great process so far. I really appreciate the engagement and the feedback we've gotten from the public so far. I appreciate the help from our consultants, Avenue Consultants, and also Parametrics who've been working on this project. We've had other partners, jurisdictional partners with this as well, such as UDOT, WFRC, and Salt Lake County. So this has been a huge undertaking and effort by ample professionals in this area. So, and with that, I'll turn that time back over to Thomas. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brittany. I'm going to share my screen. So tonight I'm going to be going through the content that we have on the website that really gives you a sense of the entirety of the plan, and then talking about how you can provide comments and feedback to the plan as we go. So the website that you're seeing here on the screen can be found if you type in sandytmp.com. So just sandytmp, all one word, .com. It'll take you to this website, and so feel free to go there. You can kind of follow along as I kind of go through and talk about things. So the transportation study typically consists of a couple of kind of key elements. And Sandy has been growing, and we really wanted to take a look at kind of where we are. So we usually start with looking at existing conditions, and that almost always starts with taking a look at the roadway network, which is what's kind of on your screen right now. This is the map on the right shows the corridors within Sandy City and their classification of an arterial or a minor arterial and collector. And then those definitions are on the left. And so there's really just a couple things to point out is that Sandy City is served well by arterials. East-west arterials at 90th, at 106, and at 114. And they have some really good north-south arterials at State Street, 7th East, and 13th East. Although further east of 13th, there aren't a lot of arterials that kind of serve these neighborhoods. But this is kind of the basis of starting the master plan, is we always kind of look at the roads and see how they're doing. I'll show you the traffic and the volumes on those roads here in just a second. But you know, looking at the roadways, this is kind of where we start to look at the master plan. We always consider all modes when we look at transportation, and the map that's on the screen now shows the existing facilities for active transportation. And Sandy's got some cool trails. They've got some good connections, like the Porter Rockwell Trail that runs along tracks. There's a trail on the north side of 90th South, and of course they have access to the Jordan River Trail on the west side. And then Dimpledale is full of a bunch of soft surface trails. There's several key bike lanes too, like ones on 7th East and you know, the north side of Highland. And so active transportation was something that we wanted to make sure we include in this plan. And even though it's getting a deeper look, and you can find more information by clicking on this link here that'll take you to the active transportation website, it was certainly something that you know, played a large role. And several of the projects that you'll see here in a minute were active transportation projects, things like improving corridors to make sure we had bike lanes and the like. And then the final kind of mode to consider is transit. You can see the transit map here on the right and some information on the left. Sandy is served pretty well with transit. They've got a great TRAX line that can get you north and south to downtown and to the airport and things. There's bus routes that can serve on State Street, but and there's also a commuter rail line on the west side of I-15, and there's a station just outside of Sandy. However, there's not a great connection kind of between those, between the tracks and the commuter rail, and that's something we wanted to look at. And so transit and bus and train connections were something that we certainly wanted to take a look at, and we're part of the plan as well. The final, the final piece of kind of existing condition stuff we wanted to make sure that we included was a close look at safety. And parametrics kind of led the safety analysis. And the map that you're seeing here on your screen now shows serious injury and fatal crashes that have occurred in the 3 years of most recent years of complete data. And there were 10 fatal crashes, which is concerning, as well as the several serious injury crashes. And these intersections were, you know, the cluster of these crashes at intersections was something that we paid a special close attention to. And you'll see in the final project list that several of these intersections, like you know, 13th East and Creek Road up here, 90th and the Sandy Parkway, 7th West is something that we looked at, 90th and Monroe. All those intersections that have kind of a cluster of crashes are ones that we took a look at, and those ones I mentioned actually ultimately got projects on them. So I mentioned the roadway network and kind of the volumes and kind of the traffic and the volumes. And so this map shows the current level of service that Sandy City is experiencing today. It shows the volume on the roads and the level of congestion in an A through F kind of letter grade. And the good news is Sandy's doing great. Your quality of life here is pretty good in terms of level of traffic. You see lots of green and yellow on the map, and only pockets of red where, you know, things are over capacity and they're congested. I will say yellow corridors do have, you know, peak period or afternoon congestion. You'll experience that on, say, 90th South near I-15. And so, but overall, the city's doing really well in terms of the road network that serves its population. However, going forward, there's going to be a lot of growth. And so a lot of the value of the master plan itself is to look at future growth and make sure that we're planning for those things, and that we can try to maintain the same level of service that we enjoy today. And so going forward, we're looking at Sandy City adding about 30,000, just under 30,000 more people in population over the next 30 years, and almost 30,000 jobs as well. And so you can see population growth and job growth in Sandy City between now and 2050. And a lot of this growth is in areas that have recently been doing master plans. The images here on the right, these are a map of the Stadium Village area, kind of around Rio Tinto Stadium and the area between you know, the mall and 90th South. You can see a lot of different plans. And then the images on the left, those renderings are actually from the Stadium Village plan, where we're planning for, you know, more growth, some more density in that area. And so a lot of the new growth that we're planning for is kind of happening in those areas. This is a heat map of where we are planning for households to be, new households to be located in Sandy, or where we expect to see household growth. It's not all, between I-15 and State Street, although there's a heavy concentration there. There is some, you can see some by Highland Drive and a little bit out by Wasatch too. So there are other developments, new homes that are going to be coming to other areas as well. But a lot of it is, on the west side of Sandy, kind of between State Street and I-15. And the same thing is true for jobs. So this is a similar map of the job density. There's some kind of by the Quarry Bend area, but a lot of it is in that downtown core. As Sandy kind of reimagines their downtown and takes a look, there's a lot of growth that we're planning in those areas. And so the question is, well, if we add all these people, if we have all this growth, how is it going to impact transportation in our community? What's it going to look like? And so if you remember that red, yellow, green map I just showed you, this is one for 2050 if we do nothing. So if we don't have any projects, if we don't make any improvements, if we add these people to the community, this is the level of service that we would expect. You can see there's a lot more red and orange throughout the entire community, and volumes on these roads have gone way up. So there's more people, there's more cars, and if we don't make improvements, then things are going to get a lot worse in Sandy. But have no fear, we have a plan to have the improvements that we need to maintain the quality of life that we've enjoyed. And so that's where the what is the plan kind of comes in. So we have collectively with Sandy City, with Brittany, with Ryan, Dan, everybody and the consultant team worked with looking at what improvements are necessary and that need to be made to kind of maintain that same level of kind of green quarters within the city and the quality of life that we've enjoyed. And so this is the kind of the final project map of all the needed transportation projects within Sandy. And I'll talk about them here a little bit. And on the left here are the project lists. So this is the phase 1 list, so what's needed in the next 10 years. And then we have the 10 to 20 year time frame, phase 2 and a phase 3 list as well. And so if you'd like to take a look at these in more detail, you can download the full list by clicking on here. You can download a PDF of it, print it out, take a look. And so just to kind of highlight or talk about some of these kind of key projects, you'll notice a lot in that downtown area right around I-15 to State. There's a handful of projects here that are part of the Stadium Village plan and the downtown plan to look at improving Monroe Street, widening 94. There's improvements to Segalilly and the intersection of Monroe and Segalilly. And so there's a handful of projects in this area that are designed to accommodate kind of that heavy growth area. And then you can see there's a handful of projects throughout the community as well. There's smaller intersection projects and improvements to be made. Some of them are safety related, like Project 17 up here on 13th East. And some of them are related to traffic congestion and volume. There are also active transportation projects on here as well. So if you look at the list, for example, projects 9, 10, 11, these are all active transportation projects that came out of the active transportation plan, but they're still a capital project that still require, some striping to build. And so they made our list as well, and you can you see them here on the map. Ultimately, if we are able to make these improvements and can build, the things that we need to in the timing and the phasing that we need, we can get to a level of service map that looks like this one here on the right. So this slider shows you, again, what the level of service would be like in the future if we don't make improvements, and this is if we can make those improvements. And so you can see a lot of that orange and red kind of goes away in the future if we can, build these needed connections. And you can see the volumes, drop in some areas and are dispersed a little bit as we, make improvements at key intersections and on some of our key roads. And so we believe that by completing these projects or building out this project list as best we can, that Sandy City can stay ahead of the growth that's coming and maintain the quality of life that your residents have kind of always enjoyed. This plan, this map of the projects is really kind of the big takeaway. So if you asked me to show you the master plan in a single map or a single page, it would be this. And this is what we'd really like people to take a close look at and to comment on. And so to that end, we provided a way that you can provide feedback directly on that map. And so if you click on the how can I provide feedback, we have an interactive map that you can comment on. And there's a map description here that you can kind of read about how to identify corridor projects, and you can zoom in and click on corridors and it'll tell you about them, right up here, like what is this project. And if you're ready to make a comment, you can just click on this green box and it'll pull up a comment box, and you can find the area you want to comment on, click on it once to drop a pin, select the comment type and add your comments appropriately. The project list, ultimately, we want to reflect what the city would like to see in terms of roadway improvements. There's a handful of widenings. There's several intersections that are going to be key to take a look at. And so we want this plan to be yours. And so please take the time to go to the map, to provide a comment, and to let us know what you think about the individual projects as we work towards finalizing the master plan. Besides the map itself, there are other questions that can be answered on the website, and you can always contact us. And Sandy City, you can contact Brittany directly. You can contact myself by reaching out to the phone number and the email listed here at the bottom. And then there are several ways to reach out to Sandy City. With that, Tiffany, I would love to take any questions that the public might have, and maybe dive a little deeper into any of these projects that we might need to just kind of describe a little bit more.
Okay. The first question, is there a deadline to submit comments? How long will this website be open and available?
Sure, that's a great question. The short answer is we would love to receive comments in the next 2 weeks. So if you can get them to us by October 30th or by Halloween, that would be really great. That would allow us the time to read them and process them and think about, see what adjustments we need to make. The website will be up for a long time. It'll be up through the end of this year and through most of 2021. I can tell you that it will at least stay active through May of 2021, and it'll probably live beyond that too. So the website will be up for plenty of a long time.
Okay, how will the comments be used? And if enough people don't like a project, would it be removed from this list?
Yeah, so the way we want to use comments is to specifically take a look at the projects. We want to know how people feel about them, and is there an opportunity for us to take a closer look at any one of these individual projects, including if people have a real concern about it. We want to understand what that concern is, and there might be an opportunity to have a project removed from the list. I mean, ultimately, we want this to be your plan, and we want it to reflect your values, and we want it to serve Sandy City. And we think that it does. We think that we are doing a good job to identify things that improve safety, make it safer for your community to navigate around, that accommodates all modes. We've got bike projects and transit projects on here, that it makes it, we reduce congestion as well. And so, but if we aren't accomplishing those things, or you have a real problem with one of those projects, let us know, and yeah, there could be an opportunity to have it removed.
I would add on to that too, Thomas, that if there's a lot of negative feedback about a project, it would be a definite signal to us that we need to look at the project from a different perspective. Are there some particular concerns about the project that we need to review? Is there something that we're not seeing or something that we're missing? Things like that. Is there some adjustments that are needed with the project, So, I mean, yeah, maybe the project's still needed, but maybe we need to take a little bit different approach to it.
Or if there was a project that was, it was more positive for that, could it possibly move ahead in any of the phasing?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if people really, really want to see a project done early, if there was a lot of passion behind, getting a project done, then there's probably is some value in taking a look at the timing.
Okay. The next question we have is, what are the next steps? Where do we go from here?
That's another great question. So we have a What's Next tab where we put together kind of this simple schedule about kind of, what's going to happen in the coming kind of months. You can see our public meeting is here in October. Brittany talked about doing the active transportation plan and overlapping with the master plan. We've got, today's public meeting But going into the future, late this year or early next year, the plan is to have this document presented to Planning Commission and have their review and recommendation, and then ultimately to City Council, and then eventually, adopted with the regional transportation plan, so that Wasatch Front, which controls all the transportation plans in the region, can add it to their RTP. And so each of those meetings are public forums, and so people have the opportunity to attend Planning Commission and City Council and voice their concerns there if they feel like they need to or want to see kind of how this particular document is advancing this plan. But even beyond then the project list goes to Brittany and Ryan and the city, and they get an opportunity to start taking a look at them from a capital improvements perspective and start to fund and see how things go. And several of these corridors will need further study. And so even beyond into next year and beyond, there's opportunities to still follow projects.
Okay, there's been some chatter recently around the Highland Drive extension project. What is the plan for that?
Brittany, do you want to talk about Highland Drive?
Yeah, I'll hit on that. So we have received a federal grant from WFRC, $4.3 million to do an EIS, environmental impact study or statement on the whole entire Highland Drive corridor, all through Sandy and then down through Draper. We did apply for the funding in conjunction with Draper, so we will both be splitting that match. The funded year for the Highland Drive study is next year in 2021. And so we do intend to bid that out in the beginning of July of next year in the summer. And so there's two major things that we as a city are looking for from this study. Number one, is the Highland Drive corridor needed or is it not needed? And number two, if it is needed, how are we supposed to get through Dimple Dell Park and how are we supposed to get through the Hidden Valley Golf Course? We anticipate if it's not needed, we will still have construction there, particularly between Siegel Lilly and 9800 South, likely a 2-lane corridor with an adjacent trail. And if it is needed, then it would be done likely in phases because it's quite a large project. But the soonest that any construction would happen would be at the year 2030 or later. And that's because the whole study, it's pretty big, $4.3 million is a lot. And so we anticipate that study to take about a year or two. And then it'll take some time for coordination between us and Draper on how we want to move forward with those project recommendations. And then from that, the federal funding cycles, which are the projects that require a lot of funding, that funding comes to the federal government, and we have to apply for those projects 5 years in advance. And so we applied to get the funding for this study back in 2016. And so we would have to, after our coordination with Draper and our plans to move forward, we would then have to apply for that federal funding at 2025 at the soonest. So if whatever project we decide to apply for gets funded, the soonest it would happen is in year 2030. So, but the big takeaway from everything I'm saying is what the study is going to do for us. One, it'll tell us, is a Highland Drive corridor needed or is it not needed? And then if it is needed, how do we get through the Dimple Dell and through Hidden Valley?
If I can, just to kind of clarify maybe the map a little bit for people who might be viewing it, you'll notice there's multiple numbers on Highland Drive, and that's because there's different phases. And Brittany just talked about that environmental study, and that is what's shown for Project 12 here. It's Highland Drive, it's the environmental study, it's the red line. So in that first phase that Brittany just talked about, those first couple of years, it's just doing the environmental study. And then beyond that, going into the future, depending on what that study has as outcomes, you can see we've got 24, 25, and 26 are all Highland Drive. And the reason that we're listing it 3 times is because they have different limits. The existing piece on the north will need to get widened to likely to 7. And, she suggested that the new construction is probably, about in the 5-lane. And that's why, you see kind of so many numbers. It just kind of layers out or details out, like not just the phasing and the timing, but also which build pieces would happen kind of when.
Okay. The next question is, there's a lot of congestion around the 90th South State Street area where the stadium is. What's the plan in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a lot going on, both in the growth as well as in the plan. I wonder if I can launch this full screen, and I'll show you guys the kind of comment map, and we can zoom in and take a little bit of a closer look at what we have planned in that area. So there's a handful of things. Project 6 and 7, those are intersection improvements on 90th South, 90th and Monroe, and then 90th and State, and those are going to be, those intersection improvements. We don't know exactly necessarily what they're going to be in terms of, a widening, or do they need triple Fs, or are we looking at some innovative type of improvements there? But they are going to be critical to make sure that traffic continues to flow as the area on the stadium grows. There's also a realignment of Monroe Street. So right now it kind of swings down closer to I-15, and then you can see this is a straight shot, straight down, kind of by the stadium. There's a handful of others. There's a realignment of 9270, and that I think is in the process of going forward. You can see there's improvements to 94, and then on the west side of 90th, UDOT has a plan to widen 90th all the way to, I think, at least Redwood Road, to a 7-lane corridor, and make some improvements. We are looking at improving this intersection of 90th and the 500 West intersection, or Sandy Parkway, with potentially, I think it's a through turn. It's showing up here because you would divert traffic and have them kind of come up. And then even beyond that, there's the widening of State north of 90th. There's some other improvements downtown. This green line is a widening of that Sandy Parkway 500 West corridor as well. Again, due to a lot of growth in Middale and growth around the area. It's not shown until phase 3, like it's not needed immediately. It's a ways out. But all of those projects will help ensure that traffic continues to flow and operate well around the Sandy core of downtown, the Stadium Village, and the I-15 interchange.
And I'll add on to that too, Thomas, with some work that we're doing right now in the area. UDOT does plan to widen 90th South from Redwood over to 7th West. That's the extent of that project. They don't have a project year on that at all. It was supposed to be this year, but they overran on some other projects, so they pulled that one. And then for the 450 West through U-turn, so right now it's pretty tight getting from I-15 southbound off-ramp to then weave over to get into the southbound left turn lane at 450 West and 90 South in order to travel back, continue down south. Yep. On 450 West. Because that weaving distance is so tight, we did apply for a federal grant last year and received it in order to build a U-turn on the north leg of that intersection. Yeah, up where that red dot is. Yep. And so instead of having to weave over to get into that left turn pocket, drivers can continue west and instead turn right. Yes, to travel northbound and then do a U-turn to head back south on Sandy Parkway. And that's funded for year 2025. If you go and stand out there at the intersection, you see drivers already doing this. Yeah. So it's a definitely needed project. Right now, UDOT is widening or doing a collector distributor system and adding a new ramp on I-15 northbound. So in order to exit the freeway to 90th South, that exit is going to start all the way down at 9400 South. And the other thing that flyover ramp does is that when you exit, if you want to exit the freeway on 90th South onto 215 or to 7200 South, you take that exit ramp that starts at 9400 South. As far as the northbound on-ramp goes, that is a pinch point in the area and that interchange there. As far as I understand it, this is the busiest interchange in the whole state. And so that northbound on-ramp does cause some backup to these side streets that approach the freeway. While this new flyover and this new ramp that UDOT's doing right now will not add any capacity to that ramp metering area, it'll be a new change and new traffic patterns will develop through here because of that project. And so that will continue to be studied over the next few years. And then accommodations should be made in phase 2 of the I-15 northbound collector distributor project. Another project that we're doing right now, we actually just barely bid this out. And so construction's just getting started, as at the Monroe and 90th South intersection. We intend to add dual left turn lanes on every single leg of this intersection. And then also a project on the south end, a little bit on the south leg down there. Yep, on where Monroe Street and Monroe Parkway connect. But the main thing is adding capacity to the Monroe and 90th South intersection with dual left turn lanes in all directions. That also means that you have 2 receiving lanes on all legs as well. And so it should help that northbound traffic, especially on Monroe, clear out a little bit faster and not have so much backup through that area.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
yeah, that's all I have.
Well, I say the only other one we might mention is that there's also a transit project in the future as well. Just kind of from downtown, it's this corridor right here, and it's designed to specifically connect the light rail and the commuter rail stations through the downtown core. And there is like a new flyover across I-15 to accommodate transit as well as bicycles and pedestrians. So you know, we're addressing all modes in downtown.
So not much going on at all, right, Thomas?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. The last question we have is, how did you figure out which phase of each project went into?
Yeah, that's again a really great question. You know, a lot of what went into the phasing is we look specifically at all of this travel demand modeling. Brittany, when she introduced the study tonight, she mentioned that there was all the signal timing, and it led to this travel demand modeling. And we did detailed models for the city in 2030 and 2040 and 2050 to look at are there triggers when projects are needed? Are there things that are happening that a project would need to be in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3? We also tried to look at how it aligned with other projects in the region, with Wasatch Front's plans, and then finally with funding allocation. So we can't put everything in the first 10 years. We couldn't afford it. And so, you know, when dollars might become available, also led us to take a look at what's the best phasing and timing for some of these projects. And then I guess in some cases, there's 1 or 2 projects that maybe lead to another. And so in some of those cases, it just, you know, step 1 kind of comes before step 2. Like Brittany was just describing that intersection in Monroe, where we're going to make an improvement. And then as they build some of the downtown and the Stadium Village plan projects, then there will come back and be another kind of improvement, you know, at that time.
And sometimes, I mean, referring back to the earlier question, projects can change years or when they're needed, and they can bump up to be earlier. And a lot of that will depend on what the development looks like in the area. How hard is it to obtain the needed right-of-way? What kind of utilities are there? What do the traffic pattern changes or demands look like? So it is. We have had projects change a little bit before. So
if there are no more questions, I would like to just, you know, thank the city for kind of leading this project and all the effort that went into kind of putting the draft plan together that they've taken a look at. There's a full document. It's not just you know, the project map and list, although that is kind of the bulk of it. I would encourage folks to go and visit the website in the coming weeks and months and kind of get familiar for what the plan is in your city. I would really encourage you to talk to your friends and neighbors about commenting on our map and letting us know your thoughts on individual projects. What, you know, you like them or you don't, or you have any thoughts there. And then you know, the website's got tons of other great information. You know, we've got an FAQ you can read about, you know, what is a transportation plan and some of the benefits of it. And then you can always reach out to Sandy City, you know, via a couple different ways, and those are detailed here, like you know, getting email notifications and those type of things, as well as you can always reach out to us on the project team at Avenue by just calling this number or this email. We would really love to hear from you and to talk to folks about this, you know, this plan and the projects in Sandy.
And the website is sandytmp.com.
That's right, Sandy. You can see it in the browser, sandytmp.com. It's there. We try to make it easy to follow and organize each of these individual tabs, jump you to those individual sets within the plan about what the content is, how you can provide feedback, how to contact us. And the recording from tonight's meeting will be up there as well. So you can, watch later at your leisure, things that we talked about tonight.
If there's not anything else, I think we'll end here. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks.